Hello everyone. Did you really think Squid Game's second season was gonna drop without a peep from moi? That I would just stay in the netherworldly throes for time eternal, locked in battle with the unholy wraiths of darkness unto my end? Nay. I could not do that because when an edgy K-drama drops, we need a deep dive. Am I wrong? No, I'm not. So let's do this, a cutting analysis of Squid Game Season 2. Now, the plot of the show is fairly straightforward, what we might anticipate. Squid Game champion Gi-hoon, upon turning around in the airport terminal at the end of Season 1, sets about trying to track down the game's proprietors so that he can put a stop to the game, and instead ends up back in the competition, once again traversing its deathly trials alongside a gang of freshly minted entrants comprising a range of hapless saps who, for their debts and woe, have accepted invitations to compete for a potentially salvational fortune, unwitting as they are to the deadly nature of the contests therein. So too are the show's themes nothing ambiguous. I don't actually have a cutting analysis to submit, more just an articulation of the obvious with some interesting insights to boot. For Squid Game's second season is rather candid in expressing its ethos. The message is simple. The state of South Korean society is abominable. The masses are set upon each other in a depraved capitalistic game, all for the merriment of elites. Yes, set upon each other, which is why upon the stage curtains drawing back once more, we find the same recruiter drawing people into the game. The elites are removed from the perils of the competition, which is why the recruiter doesn't have to fear being caught. No one will believe Gi-hoon's story, and the police, they're just a tool of the system, an effete entity designed to perpetuate an illusion of security.
송 사장님, 경찰은 안 돼요. 제가 평생 경찰이 우리 같은 사람들한테 도움이 된 걸 본 적이 없어.
The police don't exist to curb the excess of the elites. They exist to control the little guy. The police are just another insidious element helping to compose a wider tapestry of deceit that aims to convince the masses that society is fair, that there are rules, and those rules are enforced. The elites, or the game masters in this case, truly go out of their way to keep the masses buying into the system, believing it benefits them, and that there is no better way of organizing society than the status quo. The elites employ a variety of approaches to this end as follows. First, the elites make people feel like they can win.
선물은 하나, 빵과 복권, 둘 중 하나만 선택하실 수 있습니다.
Even the poorest in society are made to believe that they have a shot at becoming rich if they gamble, which we know that the elites want the poor to do because it's entertaining to them. They're so rich, they don't even really need more profit. They're just bored and want to toy with people. And then they escape the ire of the victimized by making their victims feel responsible for their own bad decisions.
저는 선생님께 기회를 드렸고 선생님은 선택을 했습니다.
The recruiter did offer the homeless men in this scene a choice, but it's quite obvious to us that they were forced into a spot where they would make a bad decision. And extrapolating a bit, the system itself has sort of left these downtrodden men behind, creating a situation where if confronted with the chance to gamble, they will almost certainly do so. However, a cursory glance at the exchange between gambler and dealer makes it seem like the gambler is at fault. And then, of course, the recruiter doesn't have to destroy the rejected bread. That's just cruelty. He wants us to believe he's just following the rules. But the rules were made by him, and he crushes the bread merely to entertain himself at the starving's expense. The next trick the elites pull is they make people feel like they control their fate in the system. As we just alluded to, the game masters make the contestants feel as though they have chosen to join the game voluntarily and that they remain in the game round after round voluntarily.
그냥 게임만 하면 된다더니 이렇게 사람을 납치하듯이 끌고 와서 여러분들께서는 그런 저희를 믿고 모두 자발적으로 어떤 강압도 없이 이 게임에 자원하셨습니다. 저희는 언제나 참가자 여러분의 자발적인 참여 의지를 가장 중요하게 생각합니다. 저희는 여러분의 자유로운 의사결정을 존중합니다.
The game masters lie by omission. They masterfully employ partial truths. They sell the chance to become rich, but they don't make it clear what the risks are for partaking in the game. That's not to say that the players bear no responsibility for their woes, but we might say they are victims of entrapment. There's no better example of the tension between the players' free will and the game master's control over them and their fates than the new rule introduced in this round that allows the players to vote after each game on whether to continue the competition or end it and go home with the money amassed. There is some bit of freedom afforded to the players in this dynamic, but the game masters do everything in their power to entice the players into making a bad or more risky decision. If the players quit early, they receive very little money, and of course, the money accumulated is shoved in front of their faces to titillate them. The next thing the elites do to uphold their system is they posit themselves as the heroes of the common man.
돌아가서 남은 인생을 빚쟁이들에게 쫓기며 쓰레기처럼 사시겠습니까? 아니면 저희가 드리는 마지막 기회를 잡으시겠습니까?
The game masters present themselves as magnanimous saviors who offer these dissolute players a chance to climb out of debt. The elites create the problem in the first place by concocting a system that draws people into financial hardship and then pose as the heroes who are mercifully trying to help. The game masters profit by causing the problem and also by solving it.
저희는 여러분을 해치려는 게 아닙니다. 여러분들에게 기회를 드리는 겁니다.
The elites profit on all sides of the equation, whether in the money they take from the masses which causes the debt, or in being lauded as heroes for providing an odious method for overcoming such difficulties. And finally, the last thing the elites do to keep the buy-in is they make people believe the system is legitimate and the rules are fair and enforced, as with the impotent police. There is an extent to which the elites abide by the rules that they have put in place. Of course, when the system is in threat of collapsing, the elites cheat. In the case of the competition in Squid Game, when the players are on the verge of voting their way out of the game, they insert a mole in the form of player one, the front man, Huang and Ho, to ensure it continues. This one example subverts any claim the game masters might make about the integrity of the system or its rules. The front man is obviously not a fair addition to the game. He is not financially insolvent and thus doesn't have the same interests as the other players, and as he is in control of the game, his life is not at risk. Yet he joins and subtly encourages the other players to keep gambling.
사실 저도 겁나서 그만두고 나가려고 그랬는데 선생님 얘기 듣고선 딱 한 게임만 더 해볼까 그 생각했거든요.
Don't mistake me. The show doesn't want us to absolve the players of all culpability for their sorry state. Rather, it wants us to grapple with the question of fault. Is the individual to blame or the system? Squid Game's second season features a host of unsettling moments in which the players act in a callous and detestable manner.
참가자 1인당 2,493만 1,500원입니다.
아, 이 씨발 게임하다 뒤질 뻔했는데 2,400개 같은 소리야.
Despite all their horror at seeing other contestants perish, after each game, many of them very contradictorily express disappointment at the meager amount of money that has accumulated and seem to rue the healthy number of contestants who survived.
아니 뭐야 1억도 아니고 8천도 안 되네
110명이요? 진짜 그거밖에 안 죽었어요?
And then, of course, many of them continually vote with sanguine glee to keep the competition going. The players might value their lives and those of the other players, but not as much as they value money. And yet, no matter how repulsive some of the individual players' behavior might be, we cannot escape the broader truth the show espouses, that while the players may be spiritually corrupt, they are made so by a corrupt system.
226번 김영삼, 재무액 19억, 444번 김남두, 20억 2천, 343번 심재석, 28억 9천.
The players are all saddled with financial woe, many of whom find themselves that way because of profligate behavior. People in society are obsessed with gambling because The elites benefit when the masses take risks and fail. Even the players in the game who don't seem all that naturally iniquitous are still addicted to gambling.
무궁화 꼬치를 한다고?
호박이 아니라 게임이잖아.
나 정말 이거 한 판만 더 하면은 그거 갚을 수 있을 것 같거든요.
And this is the sickness the elites have created. The players don't even notice their own madness. The way in which taking foolish risks to get rich is a part of everyday life. After witnessing bloodshed abound, Myung-gi finally tells his pregnant ex-flame that he wants to vote to leave the game, but he plans to take their winnings and continue to gamble with it back in society.
내가 주식 쪽으로 괜찮은 팀 하나 알고 있거든? 거기가 인버스랑 선물 쪽으로 파는 데인데 지난달에만 수익률이 100%가 넘었어.
He doesn't exactly indicate that he intends to pursue a safe investment in a reputable S&P tracking index fund. People in the game have a very hard time connecting their behaviors with the horrors they face in the game, despite all of the overt messaging. They may want to get out of the game, but they are too blinded to take lessons from it. So even if they do leave, they'll continue to take bigger and bigger risks to escape their mounting troubles, to wit, their debt. This show is not a commentary on how bad people take advantage of good people. Beyond the debauched and nefarious and the just sort of okay people, we see that even the sinless are exploited by the system and drawn into the competition. This isn't Saw. In Squid Game, everyone is given to the evils of the system and corrupted by it. And the only ones to truly reap the benefits are the elite, who make the people believe their neighbors are their enemies, that the ones who hold them back and need to be killed are the other rats in the maze, not the maze makers themselves. This is why the players' uprising in the final episode is so significant. It represents an awakening or a paradigm shift. Their decision to go after and kill the Game Masters not only breaks the rules, but also demonstrates that the players have come to realize through Gi-hoon's help that the Game Masters are not just infallible purveyors with no fault for the plight of man, but rather are the cause of it and the player's true enemy.
승산이 있을까요?
기습하면 승산이 있습니다. 이번이 우리가 이 게임을 완전히 끝낼 수 있는.
Squid Game's creator wants his audience of common folk to pause their petty disputes among each other within the Matrix and turn their ire on the elite instead. The uprising fails, though, because the rebels fall for the lie that the rules are fair. Even if he breaks the rules, Gi-hoon trusts the rules. He trusts that the game is fair, but it's not. There's a mole among the players, a plant by the elite who sabotages the insurrection. Gi-hoon has subconsciously come to accept the rules of the game, even if consciously he knows the system is unfair. This brings us back to the scene in which Gi-hoon engages in a bout of Russian roulette with the recruiter. You might have thought to yourself, why doesn't Gi-hoon just take the gun when it's his turn, point it at the recruiter, and pull the trigger until it fires? The answer is that he has been traumatized by the Game Masters and conditioned to believe that his best bet is to play by the rules set for him by the Game Masters. He's seen a lot of people die by breaking rules, and he has seen that the Game Masters will abide by the results of the game so long as the rules are followed. The problem, of course, as we discussed earlier, is that the elites are actually willing to break their own rules when the system is on the brink of collapse. Thus, all is hopeless, right? Despair away, all ye piteous proles. Well, not quite. The system may be wicked and the people corrupted by it, but the show does seem to believe that man is quite redeemable. We infer this from all the moments in the show in which we see contestants work to help each other, oftentimes out of pure empathy and a desire to do the right thing, whether when a pregnant woman needs help or Gi-hoon needs brave chaps to aid in his rebellion. Actually, the very fact that following Season 1, Gi-hoon does not just retreat into a life of luxury with his newfound fortune, but instead chooses to seek out the Game Masters and put an end to the game, while frustrating to us, is vindicatory of man's soul.
너도 네가 이 세상을 바꿀 수 있는 영웅이라고 생각하는 건가?
내가 보여줄게. 세상이 너희들이 원하는 대로만 움직이진 않는다는 걸.
The front man wants to convince Gi-hoon and everyone else to just be satisfied with the system and the rules, to believe that things cannot change for the better because the state of society is reflective of human nature. evil, and thus the games are merely a product of that nature that cannot be avoided. However, the fact that Gi-hun does not bask in his riches, and on the contrary puts himself back in harm's way to fight against the game masters for the good of others, challenges the frontman's view of the world. Man, as seen through Gi-hun, is redeemable, rehabilitatable, and capable of great virtue and acts of heroism. There is nothing that scares the game masters more than someone like Gi-hun, a little guy refusing to become corrupted and threatening to bring down the system. Just how much hope for the future we should have will depend on whether he is successful at toppling the system or not. Anyway, that's the video. After all these years spent in the chthonic wilderness, I'm ever eager to hear your thoughts once again. Please share them in the comments down below. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you soon. Hopefully. Bye.